it's able to have internal processes that are able to deal with internal issues and also to create better ways of doing business as IEBC internally, and how the commissioners relate with each other, how the commission relates with staff, how commission relates with the players within the sector, that also the stakeholders, and then how does the commission then relate with major stakeholders like Parliament and the executive.
Fair enough. Thank you. Madam Koki, kindly please to ask your questions.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning again, Mheshimiwa Lorot.
Good morning, Madam Koki.
And welcome
Thank you.
today. The Kriegler report made some recommendations on the reform of the IEBC, or the election management body in Kenya. And I would like to ask you a small question related to that. First, what were the various recommendations, just a few, one or two, that are key to strengthen the IEBC, if you believe that IEBC requires some reforms now? Thank you.
Thank you. The Kriegler report, also called IREC, I think one of the major recommendations it made was on the functions of the IEBC. First, that it must be captured in a separate statute on its own. I think that time was before the promulgation of the Constitution. It must have a separate, and then to consolidate all the electoral laws into one. And then also it talked about the corporate governance of IEBC and whether their business should only be conducted through committees, whether we can merge that type of business so that now you have greater strength in terms of how you approach elections. They also talked about stricter timelines, stricter observance of timelines. They talked about having a media strategy so that it's not just because the election that were announced, so that Kriegler's committee were to review, announced by KBC, and then there was a shutdown on other media houses, and I think those are some of the contributors to what we saw as the 2007 election violence.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Koki.
I'd like to ask FCPA Tanui to kindly ask his questions.
Thank you, Chair, and again, good morning, Honorable Lorot.
Good morning, Mr. Tanui.
Now, in 2017, the National Assembly's Public Accounts Committee, while reviewing the Auditor General's report of IEBC, observed that there were instances of outright conflict in the functions of the CEO and the chairman of IEBC. And it went on to say that such conflicts arose mainly on procurement matters, and especially procurement of KIMS kits and other election materials. You are aware that just, I think, a few weeks or last month, IEBC requested for a budget of 62 billion to procure and conduct elections for 2027. As the chair of IEBC, and if considered for this position, how do you ensure that there is transparency in the operations and procurement functions of IEBC? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tanui, for that question. Firstly, I think this is what the Supreme Court talked about, corporate governance of the IEBC, and saying having defined and definitive roles for chairman, the commissioners, and how they relate with the CEO alongside other members of staff. As structured, the IEBC is that the CEO is the accounting officer, and therefore IEBC does the procurement through what is called the best practices for procurement is to do procurement through committees that are set up within the IEBC and are gazetted for that purpose internally, or either gazetted or internally circulated by the accounting office. First, as chairman, my responsibility, and I think also of other commissioners, is policy oversight, and policy oversight and strategy. As to the day-to-day and actual running, that should be done by those who are tasked with the functions of pushing everything. So as chairman, we receive recommendations, so we approve what strategic guidelines are offered by the technocrats within the IEBC, because we will not all be technocrats or have the know-how on every bit and aspect of the electioneering process. So I think first and foremost is that to reduce this issue of conflict between chair and CEO on specific things like procurement, the only thing we give will be oversight and also directions that this is the type of things we need, this is how to be procured, but the participation of the chair in the procurement process, I think, would be faulty and wrong within the procurement laws. The chair can only give directions so that the CEO and others are able to function. This is what is expected of an institution, so that we have institutional framework where it functions with directions from the policy and oversight.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, I'll ask Evans Misati to ask some questions.
Thanks so much, Mr. Rodot. Now, on the same forum on the issues of IEBC, the chairperson and the secretariat, you have said that the commissioners have to provide oversight and directions. But you realize that the general public recognizes and the buck stops at the commissioners. But the people who are conducting the actual operations at the secretariat. So in your own view, what do you think should be done to make sure that the people, the buck stops at them, they have the control as much as we have that oversight and directions? So how do you define the working relationship? Assuming you are given this position as the chair, how will you define the relationship, or what structures will you implement to ensure that that is done?
Thank you, Mr. Misati. You have correctly pointed out that the public looks at us as the ones who we are the face of the commission, and I think that should not stop. The face of the institution should be represented by the chair and the commissioners. That should not stop, because that is the face of the institution. But the institution functions through the secretariat. They are what we call support services. So what happens is that it is through creating defined roles. We have to go back. We have to go back. But if I'm appointed, if the committee, the panel recommends that I become chair, one of the first things on the tray would be to ensure that these roles are clearly defined, and we get into the recommendations by the Supreme Court that we have clear guidelines on corporate governance. I'm sure there are documents by IEBC. I'm sure they have not been sleeping. They have been preparing these documents is to look at what has been happening and where there is gaps, how to now improve them. But the communication of everything about the commission should be left now to the chair, so that if there are issues that are for communication, the chair can delegate this function. But for communication of serious aspects of the commission should be left so that the public is aware we are procuring. When we say we are procuring, it's not that the chair is procuring. It is the commission that is procuring through various committees. You would have perhaps a chair of that committee for procurement would be a commissioner who is well versed in aspects of procurement or public finance. And therefore, when they are making their recommendations through their panel papers to the commission, it comes to us, and then we approve, or we make changes, or we say these are issues we now need to go and negotiate with finance so that there is disbursement of funds. And I think that is how a proper system works.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Misati.
In answering that question, you talked about various committees. do you want to speak about those committees, whether they are existing or the ones that you think you will come up with as a chair?
I think there would be critical committees. I think I can't speak about the ones that are there or not, because I'm not sure at the moment what exists in the infrastructure of IEBC as committees. That would require insider information on the operations of the IEBC. But I think the best way would be to approach issues through committees. I think the ones that just come right into my mind would be a finance committee, a committee on legal, a committee on voter education, a committee on voter education and registration if it has to be merged, but if it is to be separated because of the critical areas that each of them faces. I think also a committee on media and outreach and communication, and then a committee on monitoring and evaluation and planning. Monitoring, evaluation and planning. Those are critical committees that should be there in every institution.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, I'll ask Ms. Fatuma Saman to interact with you briefly.
Good morning, Mr. Lorot.
Good morning, Fatuma.
Stakeholder engagement is a critical component of a successful electoral process, and particularly to position the IEBC as an impartial arbiter. So would you tell us what experiences you think you'd be able to bring on board that can help ensure that that component is taken care of?
Thank you, Fatma. Mr. Chairman, I forgot to mention, and I think it was a very serious oversight, that I have been the chair of the Court Users Committee National Steering Committee from its inception up to the year 2022, when the National Council on Administration of Justice decided that that position ought to be handled. I think they made certain changes within their structures, and that position now needed to be handled by a judge. So I was replaced by my Lord Justice Mabea. But I have been chair since its inception, and Court User Committee is about stakeholder engagement. It's about, first of all, mapping out the stakeholders and having clear outcomes. In this position as Court User, as a chair, national chair of the Court User Committees, it was something that was achieved through the Kenya Magistrates and Judges Association, so that I don't take credit for the fact that I became the first chair by default. But we were the institutional memory of how the institution of the judiciary operates. We realized the judiciary is not alone. When we get the flack for things that are going wrong, sometimes it's not ours. It is because certain stakeholders and critical partners and actors within the justice chain don't operate properly. So stakeholder engagement is actually my greatest strength. We'll be able to map out who are our clear and direct stakeholders, right from from where we source our mandate and funding, and ensuring that we have representation from all sectors in the electoral players. This also includes having direct links with the strategic groups, particularly those special groups like persons with disability, persons with women and on gender, not just women. It's about gender, to have a gender reflection, having involvement of the youth. And now that this country has a huge youth purge, I think it's important for us to have that type of stakeholder, and also now have also stakeholders from voter educators, have stakeholders from observer missions, observers, both local, international, and sometimes individual, and then also have stakeholders from those who provide services to us. These are critical. Those will be providing services to the IEBC. That will even include the legal service providers, those who will be doing the printing, not necessarily those who will be doing the printing, but from where we will now be able to obtain our materials and day-to-day running and operations. So mapping out the stakeholders and reflecting on them, on their impact and our involvement with them. So it's very critical.
Well, thank you very much.
And thank you for the question, Madam.
How will you structure your engagement with stakeholders?
I have had a glimpse of the IEBC stakeholder engagement operation plan, and I think they are on the right track, in the sense that we have the identifying. First of all, it's identifying stakeholders from the processes of the mandate of the IEBC, and the mandate of IEBC, besides election, also includes the boundaries and delimitation. So we structured from pre-election and during the election and after the election. So it's important for us to structure them along those lines, so that we don't have just stakeholders joining, but they are of no relevance at that particular time. So pre-election, one of the critical areas I think would be like for example, let me take an example of the judiciary as a critical stakeholder of the IEBC, is to prop up judges and magistrates and prepare them, and so that they are able to be prepared for the election processes as they come. One, we have pre-election, we have election offences, we have cases that may come earlier in time, and then prepare them on the laws. And then critical aspect also would be what laws are available. Having a parliament as a critical stakeholder, and how you engage with them on that. So it's just structuring them around pre, during, after elections, and then also on the services.
Thank you very much. I would like to ask the Honourable Member Nicodemus Bore to also engage you kindly.
Thank you very much, Honourable Larot. I've seen you have a long span of service at the judicial service, and we would like to know whether you have had an experience of conflict on ethical issues, and how you have managed to handle it during your time of service.
Thank you very much. It is reported when I appeared before the Judges and Magistrates Vetting Board, I reported, and I think I even had the judgment then. An advocate, I was handling a simple matter, I think, when I was in Milimani Commercial Court, and I think an advocate approached me in my chambers and said that he has been sent by his client, and I did not let him speak. I told him it was pending ruling before me the next day, so I asked him that he appears in court the next day so that I read the ruling. He didn't appear. I forced him to appear. And in my ruling, I specifically mentioned that he had appeared. And the most, I think, interesting part is that his client won the matter. And one of the penalties I gave the client was I did not award costs to the client because of that infringement. And I reported the matter to the Law Society of Kenya. So I'm very strict about my integrity. I think in my career, I have a very good wife. One of the things she has told me is that I should never come home with corrupt money, because that will affect my children and everybody else.
A second question would be, having been, from what I've seen from your CV, yes, you are a chief magistrate.
Yes.
And there must be cases that are political in nature. And is there a time that we have had political pressure on or social or financial that could compromise your judicial decisions?
No, I think the clear cases of this nature that you mentioned happened to me when I was in Machakos. I handled a very contentious case involving procurement, which was the first procurement by the county government immediately after the transition authority, and I think the county government procured second-hand vehicles, and through processes that also involve the Commission on Administrative Justice and others, and the EACC, they charged certain individuals before me. And I just handled it as a normal case. You would see the information in the papers appearing every time, but it is an ordinary case that is before me. I'm supposed to make the determination based on the law and everything that comes before me. This is the type of person that I am, and this is the type of person that I'm presenting before this panel.
Thank you very much.
Professor Adam Solo, kindly will you also ask some questions?
Thank you, Chair. Both in your oral presentation and from your CV, it is clear that you served as a commissioner of the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into the ethnic clashes in the Tana North, Tana River, and Tana Delta districts. And you did tell us how you completed that work under your chair. However, what you didn't tell us is whether the report brought a lasting solution to the conflict that you are addressing. Maybe you can take an opportunity to tell us whether that conflict continues. The reason why I ask this is because the body that you ask to chair is one that needs to resolve perennial challenges, as you clearly stated in your opening remarks, and you are seeking to sit at its apex. Therefore, the country and the panel is looking at when you are given an opportunity to give a lasting solution. Did that solution come, or there are still clashes? And if you are given this job, what assurance do you give that sitting at the helm, not just as a commissioner like in the other one, you'll bring that sanity in our electoral process?
Thank you, Daktari, for that. I want to start by saying that we delivered our report to His Excellency the President. The President who had appointed us, at the time we were delivering our report, had already left office, and so we delivered to the new President, which was His Excellency Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta. By the time we were delivering the report, we looked at, there were 3 tiers of issues that we looked at from the Tana Commission. I think I can sum up as 3, but there may have been more. The first one was with respect to the ethnic clashes themselves, whether they met the threshold of genocide, or whether they met these variant thresholds of because there was displacement, there was murder, there was clear organization, there was all those things that fitted this billing. Then the next stage that we looked at were the perpetrators known. Fortunately, we had witnesses who testified before us, and from there we were able now to involve the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution to act on them, and charges were preferred. In fact, from our report, we had a separate report on those to be charged from the recommendations of the Commission. And those who were charged, the cases were ongoing in both Garsen and Malindi High Courts. And in some instances, I think for those that occasioned gender-based violence, those who were charged before the Garsen Court, that was the first recommendation that we made. And I think in the other recommendation was about economic activity, because what were the triggers of this violence? The triggers, we noted the triggers were related to resource conflict. They were also triggered by just inter-ethnic clash. There were communities that had never remarried. They had never intermarried in that area since time immemorial. And in fact, they used to live separate. We would find this is the village of this particular community. I don't want to name them. And this other community. Whether our report succeeded is you can see one of the efforts that we tried to look at was the land structure and tenure in Tana. And one of those issues were resolved, I think, by placing some of the land into agricultural for purposes of ensuring feeding of the country. One of the achievements we can say from our report was when we said Tana River can actually feed this nation, and if it is possible for the land tenure system to be looked at fully, then it can work. As to whether it was implemented, the implementing authority was the executive. So I'm not sure, because I didn't follow up. I went back to my court work immediately after that, but I should think that from my observation, there are some changes. Yet I can see there are returns of there's return of some of this chaos, and from this that is why that's what actually pushed me to go and study international conflict management as a master's program, and actually to just be able to and that's what has taken a bit of time, because I'm also looking at myself as an informant in my own research paper. So I'm gathering that information for purposes of ensuring that this is protected and preserved, and for future purposes of enabling the commission, institutions such as the Commission, to see that there is an interrelationship between resources and election and electioneering malpractices.
Thank you. You told us that you have been in service 23 years and counting. If we were to make you chair, what would you like to be remembered for in the judicial service on your professional conduct? How would you, if you were to succeed and now you go to the Commission?
I think my colleagues on the bench I would like them to they would respect me. I would like to be remembered as a person who was respected by my colleagues and my peers. And I think that is sufficient for me, because that was a service, and I think I needed to be respected. I think I am respected by majority of my colleagues on the bench, and I have cut out a career that has spanned all these years with service and honor.
Thank you, Chair.
Have you ever sought to be promoted to the higher court?
Yes.
And what experience have you had there?
I applied to be promoted to be judge. I went through an interview. There was no complaint on my part. I went through a process of interview, but the selection was for the Judicial Service Commission to make. I was not one of those selected at the time. And I think that's all I can say. I was not selected at the time. I have applied once.
Thank you. FCPA, Tanui, kindly.
Thank you, Chair. Still on areas of leadership and integrity. Lorot, you've confirmed to us that you are a serving Chief Magistrate.
Yes.
Thank you. Under Article 260, judges and magistrates are listed as state officers. In our advert that we did put, for which you did your application, we indicated that arising from Article 88.2, people who hold state office are not eligible for appointment. Being a judicial officer, what is your take? Thank you.
I noted that on the advert, and I also noted that there are instances where, because I'm serving state officer, I'm coming for an interview, I will resign from my position if the panel were to appoint me, and I think that is the position I took. I took precedence in what has happened before, when I think the first instance of such a case was the late Nkaiseri being a member of Parliament, and as a state officer was appointed as a cabinet secretary. It has happened before. Even now we have two. We have the former MP for Ugunja and the former MP for Gwasi, who are both state officers when they were members of Parliament, and they were selected to join the cabinet secretaries, to be cabinet secretaries, which are also state officers. So there is precedent that that I'm not just coming here because I'm a state officer. I'm coming here because I'm coming for a job interview for a state office. My take also on that is that it wishes to remove persons who are not. Let me just finish with what I just said earlier. Yes, I think there is precedent for me. What happened in the past.
Thank you very much. So you think there is no conflict between who you are and what you are seeking to do?
I do not think there's any conflict.
Okay, thank you. And you will be ready to resign, that's what you're saying?
Yes, I will be ready and willing to resign instantly, once confirmed.
Thank you. Professor Adams, do you have some other questions you'd like to ask?
Yeah, Bwana Lorot, you gave us a history that as a minor, you started becoming interested in elections, the Mlolongo, the famous or infamous Mlolongo in 1988. So I'll just ask you a general question, because you seek to lead the IEBC, and therefore I believe you are very much aware of the electoral map of this country. How many constituencies are in Kiambu County?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I know there is Githunguri constituency. Let me number them. There is Githunguri, there is Kiamba, there is Lare, there is Kikuyu, there is Thika, there is Ruiru, there is Gatundu, the two Gatundus, Gatundu North and Gatundu South. I should think this would be it. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There should be about 8, if not, if maybe more. But these 8 I can remember them.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Koki, do you have a follow-up question?
No, Chair. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, and how many wards in Baringo, since that is home?
I'm from the lower part of Baringo. I'm from Mogotio, and I cannot hazard. I know that there are 3 wards in Mogotio constituency, but I cannot hazard the number of wards in the entire Baringo. But if we were to look at the 6 constituencies, then it should be something in the region of 18 to 20.
Okay, thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Roth, when your career is looked back on, what would you like to be remembered for in terms of integrity and professional conduct?
Thank you, Madam Kiome. I presented before the commission the finding of the vetting and judges and magistrate board, and because this was also an analysis of career up to and including that period. And if you look at from paragraph 32, I don't know where the document is, but if you look from paragraph 32 onwards, you will see that by the time the vetting board was making a finding, it said that I am hardworking, I am forthright and honest, and I think that those will be the hallmarks of anyone who wants to be received in any career. And I think that's why I said it was a very humbling report. I actually asked my mother whether she can use the same terms on me, and because I'm her son, I will not reveal what she said, but I think it was very humbling. Thank you, Madam Kyo.
As a magistrate, I presume that you experience difficult and dilemmas, issues coming to you to rule and to make judgment. Some maybe those that appeal to your emotions and things like that. How are you able to separate yourself as Abdikadir Lorot so that you are able to serve your clients impartially?
To be very honest, Mr. Chairman, it has taken time for that to evolve over a period, because when I joined the judiciary, I was a fairly young man. I was unmarried, and then when you're married, and I think one of the incidences that took me by, I think, and I always remember, is when I worked in Gatundu Law Courts, and there was a minor at 2.5 years old who could not testify because of age, and this was a defilement case of a minor boy. I had my son then was around the same age, and when the testimonies were coming, I could only reflect on my son. So The distinction between personal emotions, it takes time to grow out of it, because these are emotional issues. But I think I am fairly I have fairly grown in emotional intelligence over my very many period of service, and I'm able now to distinguish between my own and the emotions of others, looking at my own weaknesses, where my weaknesses fall in terms of certain biases that I have as a person who grew up, for example, in conflict areas, because my grandparents came from Kapedo, and as we all know, Kapedo is a war zone. So having grown up in those, so when I see, for example, when I was new in the judiciary and I would see cases of people stealing stock theft, it would affect me much deeper than I think it would affect the next person. So over time, I've grown and been able to accept that these are the realities. And now, while I cannot they say that as judges, or magistrates, we are still human beings and products of our own society, products of our own biases. I am Muslim, for example, and there are certain tenets of Islam that may not be condonable. So I've been able to separate what are my own biases with what is before me, and this is possible to do, and I think that is the reason why I've been able to sustain myself in this position and grown from the position before over a period of time.
Thank you very much. Just checking with you whether you have been able to present to us your clearance certificates and all of them.
Yes, I have. I presented all the clearance certificates. In fact, there was someone to assist with all of them. There's a checklist actually that was prepared.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. You have responded to our questions. I would like to thank you for your time and to appreciate that you have taken judicial diligence in responding to our questions and preparing for this interview. I don't know whether you have any question for the panel so that we could be able to engage.
I think I do not have a question, just to appreciate you, Mr. Chairman, and the panelists. First, for out of all the applicants for shortlisting me, it's not a mean feat. I come from a minority community who have not been recognized for a long time, and I think this is a first. Secondly, I think I want to appreciate the fact that you have been very kind and very kind to me, and this has been a dialogue as opposed to an interrogation. So I really appreciate that, Mr. Chairman, together with the panelists, and I wish you well in your ventures as you continue to interview the rest of my colleagues who will appear before you, and I wish you grace.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that you spend time. There's a bottle of water there. You can pick it as you leave. The Secretariat will support you if you need a cup of tea so that you can travel back. Did you say Naivasha?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, please take our regards to the people in Naivasha. Please remember to pick your certificates so that you don't leave them with us. We appreciate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Asante.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, members of the press. Can I ask you to give us some time, if you don't mind, please? Yeah, you just leave your cameras, but so that you allow us to be able to. Yeah. Yes. So they are disconnected. Yeah, but we'll be having the next person in another 40 or so minutes.